Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis. I'm the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software, and today we're going to be starting this Nexus Project Activity Logger Admin Learning Series. And we're going to be focusing on installing the toolkit and logging data. We're going to talk about exactly the steps that you have to go through to do any of this. So Nexus PAL Admin Learning Series, installing and logging data. Now, as always, of course, these webinars are recorded. So you can come back to this anytime you need to. If you want to revisit these steps, you can also share it with your team members, share it with your IT teams, you name it. These are recorded for that convenience. Also, as always, for those of you who join us live in these webinars, please feel free to throw questions into the GoToWebinar questions window. I try to keep an eye on that window while we're going through the webinar, and I will try to answer your questions in line. But we also save a QA session at the end that doesn't actually make its way into the recording, where we try to answer any questions you have about the products that we're talking about in this particular session. Without further ado, let's jump right on in. Now, here's what we've discovered in talking with a lot of our customers. Pretty much everybody wants a very easy and very passive way to get access to information about their project models. That's true, right? About the performance of those models especially, but here's the deal. Most every solution in the market is just too difficult to get going, or too expensive, or really complicated installation procedure, huge server setup in-house. Or is it? Is it really that difficult? Here's the cool thing. Nexus PAL makes this so easy that there really isn't a good reason to not install this and just begin data logging. Start logging, because when you want the actual information about your model performance, you need that information already there. And in this webinar, we're going to talk about exactly how you go through and install the project activity logger for the Nexus Suite. You can pretty much do this super simply. You can get started right now, today, across your entire office. If you're using Nexus and you're just using the latest version, you can see exactly how easy this is going to be. We're going to go through a couple of very specific things. We're going to talk about getting the correct installation package, what you're going to need for this. You can verify in your add remove programs if you've already got Nexus installed, whether you have some of this already on your machines. We're going to talk about the PAL configuration file a little bit, very lightly, and this is more for those of you who have been introduced to PAL in the past. There's an update to how this works. We're going to talk quite a bit about installing the Nexus Suite, which really isn't that complicated. And then we're going to talk about validating the logging of data, so you can actually see it happen live and make sure that you're getting the effect that you want to get. First things first. How do we download Nexus? How do we get this product in the first place on our machines? This is the most important thing, because once you have it downloaded, you can immediately turn around and install it. So to download Nexus, you're going to want to go to ctcsoftware.com. From ctcsoftware.com, the only requirement is that you have a CTC software account. So you can go to this little person over here. If it's hollow, just click it. That'll bring you to a login page. You can establish your account and you can sign in. If your company's brand new, it'll actually guide you through the creation of an organization with us. If your company already exists, it'll let you get associated to that company specifically based on your email address. Pretty straightforward registration process. It's just like any of our other tools. Once you're in here, right below that person is the downloads button. This downloads button right here is what you want to be using. In downloads, if you go over here at the very bottom of the downloads list, there's only 3 options here. At the bottom of the downloads list is the Nexus Suite. You're going to want to click download on that. There are 2 options right now for downloads. There's a multi-user installer. This is recommended for most firms. If you're having IT manage your installs, this is the best option to use. Download this. If you're just one person on one machine and you still want to capture data, fantastic. You can do this very easily as well. You can either use multi-user installer, very simply, if you don't have any restrictions, or if you do for some reason have some admin restrictions, you can use the single user installer. This does not require administrator privileges to install, but it's only going to be available to the person who actually installs it on the machine. So if you have multiple people sharing a machine, you have, say, maybe virtual machines in the offices, shared desktops, things like that, the multi-user installer is absolutely the best way to go. That's why it's on top. Most people just click that link. That's the perfect thing to do. Now a note, the most latest version right now is 26.2. And for this to work in the way that I'm going to be demonstrating to you today, you want to be on 26.2. This greatly simplifies the installation process. Technically, 26.1 also does a lot of this, but the easiest one is the latest and greatest one, which right now is 26.2. Anything newer than that is going to work just fine as well. They're all going to work the same moving forward. So 26.2 is what you want. Download that. That's going to be a .zip file. When you get a .zip file downloaded from the internet, you always want to make sure you right-click that .zip file and you unblock it. Go to Properties and unblock it. That makes all the files inside of the .zip unblock as well when you extract them. And then you're just going to extract the zip file. When you extract the zip file, you're basically going to see these files right here in the folder. There's the Nexus Suite multi-user setup. There is going to be an installation and configuration guide, a little PDF there talking through exactly how to do the installation and configuration of things. And there's also going to be an old school project activity logger installation configuration guide. You can pretty much ignore that because we're going to talk about everything in here today. If you want some tips about the installation of Nexus, you can absolutely open up the installation and configuration guide before you install it so you can understand how to do silent installations across the firm. And that way for the multi-user push, you can actually just install the Nexus Suite quietly, push it out using whatever your toolkit that you want to use for pushing software. This is the exact script to copy. If maybe you want to disable certain aspects of the Nexus Suite for some reason, you can add these extra switches to the end, just deselecting different things. You can see an example of how you might do that right here. Just a space between them, deselecting ally, deselecting, the CMS or deselecting BIM automation. You could deselect those if you wanted to, but for the best experience, because you're probably going to want all those features, I recommend just running the MSI exec, quietly installing it like this, and you're done. Now, I'm going to run this interactively today. I'm going to do this with you live. We're going to go through the full installation process so you can see that there is no smoke and mirrors involved. Just to prove that I have nothing really here, I do have the folder in CTC software for PAL, but notice that it's empty. We're going to come back to this in a minute. On the cloud aspect, notice that it's empty. We're going to come back to this in a minute, but we are going to be running this installer itself. Now, for those of you who have talked with us in the past about the project activity logger setup, you know that there's a couple more steps that were involved than just downloading and installing. We used to have to go get the PAL configuration file. So this is a throwback to those of you who have seen this before. I am going to go into the portal over here. I'm going to go to where we used to go in projects and in settings, and notice that there is no download config file button here anymore. You do not need that file. Those of you who already have the file, you do not need to push that file. That is unnecessary completely. You can completely ignore some of those old drawn out steps that we used to have to do. You just download the Nexus product and install it, and you're done. That's really as simple as it is. So let me go through the installation process. You can actually see this happen live right now in front of you. So I'm going to go ahead and run the Nexus multi-user setup on my machine. I'm going to pull this across so you can actually see this show up. I'm going to go ahead and just click next. This is .2. This is the latest and greatest version, the same one that you have access to. I'm going to run a complete install. This is everything. In the interactive installer, you can choose to customize this and you can choose to remove certain specific features, but I am intentionally going to install this in completion. I am not going to install Access right now just because I already have it on my system from my other BIM suites, so I'm not going to slow down my install process by putting this on as well. I want to show you the Nexus portion as easily and quickly as possible, but if you don't have any tools from CTC, I would recommend installing the CTC Access tool because it does help notify you when there are updates for our tools available, like when we release Nexus 26.3, because we're always working on new features and improvements to workflows. The CTC Access tool will help notify you about that. But again, I've already got this, so I'm intentionally going to choose, in this case, just for sake of speed, to not install it. When I click next here, it is going to ask me a question on my other monitor about, do I want to run this MSI thing? This is a part of that whole needing admin privileges. So I just answered yes to that, and it's going to go through the rest of the install process here, and it shouldn't take too long. This usually takes, at most about 60 seconds. Of course, now that I'm in a webinar and I'm presenting across the internet, of course, it's going to take longer, right? But typically, this is about a 60-second process. And when you're doing this with the silent install using the scripted install with the MSI, users don't even realize it's happening. They just do it on login typically, and you're off to the races and everything's all good to go. Now, while that's happening, I'm going to switch back over to the PowerPoint for just a second, because once you have this installed, especially on your machine, you are going to want to make sure, oh, it asked me one more question about, do I want to do the thing? And so I just clicked yes on that as well. I'd forgotten that the second one pops up there. But this, we're going to validate that this is actually data logging. That's going to be really important, just so that you know that you're actually going to be capturing data here. Now at this point, my installation just completed. I don't know if it was exactly 60 seconds, might have been 90, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to read the installation and configuration guide. I just pointed out to where that was. We already have, used of that what we needed, which was to get the silent install information. I'm just going to finish this. My Nexus is set up. It is done. I am ready to rock with this. There's nothing else really for me to do other than verify that it's working. So how do I verify that it's working? Well, you will have on your machine a PAL folder now and a PAL Q Cloud folder. These are located at these specific locations. See users, the actual user who's signed in, app data, local, CTC software, PAL Q Cloud. This path right here, app data local, CTC software, PAL Q Cloud, is where you're going to see some log files show up when PAL is actively working. You're going to see some files show up and disappear from this folder. The other significant folder is this one right here, See Users Public, CTC Software PAL. This folder is going to get some configuration files here. So for this to run, you do need to have the project activity logger installed on every user's machine, and it needs to run while Revit runs. So yes, you do have to install this everywhere, because if it's not installed on a machine, it can't track Revit on that machine. So you just need to simply push this out and install it. And then when they open up Revit, assuming they're logged in with a CTC account, if they're not, it'll prompt them. But if they are logged in, they won't see anything. It'll just launch and begin doing some work. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Revit. It doesn't matter the version for me, 22 through 26, all of these work. I'm going to be launching Revit 2023 in this case. As you can see in the background here, Revit 23 is launching. And I'm going to leave this PAL folder up on screen. What we should see happen here is this should populate with some files here in just a moment as it authenticates that I'm an actual user, because I'm already signed into other CTC tools. There it is. There's some logs. There's some cloud company settings.json. There's a PAL client settings.json. All of this is ready to go. I don't have to do anything with these folders. I can completely ignore this. This is a location you used to have to push files before. And now with the new installer, it goes and fetches them for you because it knows what organization users are logged on to. When I jump over to the cloud folder here, we can actually see a session show up here. It logs that. This will probably disappear in a little while, but it does show up. Inside of Revit, let me go ahead and just open up something here in Revit. I'm gonna go browse for a file. Let's do my typical architecture building model. That's a pretty quick one to open, I believe. Yep, that JSON file actually just disappeared from this folder, so I know it's working. So we're actually validating that data is actually being logged at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and just do my typical open process. I'm opening with, in my case, all work sets because my building is relatively small. And as I get this model open, we're gonna start seeing a few more files appear in this PAL queue folder. And then typically you will subsequently see them disappear from that folder if you're watching it. But you don't have to watch it because it does it all automatically in the background. So yeah, here's a session object giving me some information about the opening speed and some basic metrics out of this model. We're probably going to see it show some events show up here, like the accessing of a view. Yeah, here's an event for view access. Probably a couple more things, some metrics about the warnings that exist in the model right now, some summary data, some warning summary, view object that I'm in right now. It gave me all this information, and as an end user, just continue to work, I'll just do my normal thing. I'll navigate around, go to my floor plan, start doing some work. There's another event that shows up because I accessed a different view, and it tracks how long that takes. And I'm just gonna, go in there and make edits and do things and sync to central and, do whatever it is I need to be doing as an end user. And as I do the things that I should be doing, those logs show up and they disappear. And that tells me that PAL is working. That is all I had to do. So what you saw me do actually today was I downloaded Nexus, the latest version, 26.2 is what's available right now today, late in 2025. I installed it and I opened Revit and worked. And that is it. That is as difficult as it is to get the Nexus product doing some logging for you so that your users' information and the performance data about your projects can show up inside of your dashboards. Now, in other sessions, other project activity logger admin learning series sessions, we've already talked about, and we will continue to talk about in this series, how to actually make projects, how to review that information, how to, pull this down into some local Power BI custom dashboards. We're going to go through all that in other sessions. This one was just about making sure that you can install Nexus, get PAL running, verify that it's logging so you have some data when you go to that session and actually start doing some of that work. So for those of you watching this as a recording, we want to say thank you. We hope you found this micro session on how to do some basic project activity logger administration. We hope you found this valuable. We hope that you can repeat these steps yourself very easily. And if you have any questions, we encourage you to reach out to CTC Software. You can reach out to tech support at ctcsoftware.com, and we are more than happy to help you walk through getting this set up in your environment.